Hello friends, today we talk about law number 9. Win through your actions, never through arguments. First of all, it's judgment. Any momentary trump you think you have gained through argument is really a Pyrrhic victory. The, the resentment and ill will you stir up is stronger and lasts longer than any momentary change of opinion. It is much more powerful to get others agree with you through your actions without saying a word. Demonstrate, do not explicate. Transgression of the law. In 131 BC, the Roman consul published diverse Mucians laying things to the Greek town of Pergams, found himself in need of a battering ram to force through the town's walls. He had seen a couple of hefty ships masts in a shipyard in Athens a few days before, and he ordered that the larger of these be sent to him immediately. The military engineer in Athens, who received the order, felt certain that the consul really wanted the smaller of the masts. He argued endlessly with the soldiers who delivered the request. The smaller mast, he told them, was much better suited to the task, and indeed it would be easier to transport. The soldiers warned the engineer that their master was not a man to argue with, but he instead that the smaller mast would be the only one that would work with a machine that he was constructing to go with it. He drew diagram after diagram and went so far as to say that he was the expert and they had no clue what they were talking about. The soldier knew their leader and at last convinced the engineer that it would be better to slow his experience and obey. After they left, though the engineer thought about it some more, what was the opinion, he asked himself, and obeying an order that would lead to failure, and so he sent the smaller mast, confident that the consul would see how much more effective it was and reward him justly. When the smaller mast arrived, musician asked his soldiers for an explanation. They described to him how the engineer had argued endlessly for the smaller mast, but had finally promised to send the larger one. Musician went into a rage. He could not concentrate on the siege or concentrate the importance of breaching the walls before the town received reinforcements. All he could think about was the impudent engineer whom he ordered to be brought to him immediately. Arriving a few days later, the engineer greatly explained to the consul one more time the reason for the smaller mast. He went on and on, using the same arguments he had made with the soldiers. He said it was wise to listen to experts in these matters, and if the attack was only tied with the battering ram he had sent, and the consul would not regret it. Musicians let him finish, then had him stripped naked before the soldiers and flogged and scourged with rods until he died. Interpretation: the engineer, whose name has not been recorded by history, had spent his life designing masts and pillars, and was respected as the finest engineer in a city that had excelled in the science. He knew that he was right. A smaller ram would allow more speed and carry more force. Larger is not necessarily better. Of course, the consul would see his logic and would eventually understand that science is natural and reason superior. How could the consul possibly persist in his ignorance if the engineer showed him details, diagrams, and explained the theories behind his advice? The military engineer was the quietness of the arguer, a type found everywhere among us. The arguer does not understand that words are never neutral, and that by arguing with a superior him impugns the intelligence of one more powerful than he. He also has no awareness of the person he is dealing with, since each man believes that he is right, and words will rarely convince him otherwise, and arguer reasoning falls on deaf ears. When cornered, he only argues more, digging his own grave. Once he has made the other person feel insecure and inferior in his beliefs. The eloquence of Socrates could not save the situation. It is not simply a question of avoiding an argument with those who stand above you. We all believe we are masters in the realm of opinions and reasoning. You must be careful, then learn to demonstrate the correctness of your ideas indirectly. Observance of the law. In 1502, in Florence, Italy, and enormous blocks of marble stood in the works departments of the Church of Santa Maria del Fiore. It had once been a magnificent piece of raw stone, but an unskillful sculptor had mistakenly bored a hole through it where there should have been a figure legs, generally mutilating it. Piero Sodrini, Florence mayor, had contemplated trying to save the blocks by compelling Leonardo da Vinci to work on it, or some other master, but had given up, since everyone agreed that the stone had been reunited. So, despite the money that had been wasted on it, it gathered dust in the dark halls of the church. This was where things stood until some Florentine friends of the great Michelangelo decided to write to the artist, then living in Rome. He alone, they said, could do something with the marble, which was still magnificent raw material. Michelangelo travelled to Florence, examined the stone, and came to the conclusion that he could in fact carve a fine figure from it by adapting the pose to the way the rock had been mutilated. Sodrini argued that this was a waste of the time. Nobody could salvage such a disaster, but he finally agreed to let the artist work on it. Michelangelo decided he would depict a young David, ceiling in hand. Weeks later, Michelangelo was putting the final touches on the statue. Sodrini entered the studio, fancying himself a bit of a connoisseur. He studied the huge work, told Michelangelo that while he thought it was magnificent, the nose he judged was too big. Michelangelo realized the Sodrini was standing in a place right under the giant figure and did not have the proper perspective. Without a word, he gestured for Sodrini to follow him up to scaffolding. Reaching the nose, he picked up his chisel as well as a bit of marble dust that lay on the planks. With Sodrini just a few feet below him on a scaffolding, Michelangelo started to tap lightly with the chisel, letting the bits of dust he had gathered in his hand to fall little by little. He actually did nothing to chance the nose, but gave every appearance of working on it. After a few minutes of this charade, he stood aside. Look at it now. I like it better. I like it better, replied Sodrini. You have made it come alive. Interpretation. Michelangelo knew that by changing the shape of the nose, he might ruin the entire sculpture. Yet Sodrini was a pattern who prided himself on his aesthetic judgment. To offend such a man by arguing would not only gain Michelangelo nothing, it would put future commission in jeopardy. Michelangelo was too clever to argue. His solution was to change Sodrini's perspective without making him realize that this was the cause of his misperception. Fortunately for posterity, Michelangelo found a way to keep the perfection to the statue intact while at the same time making Sodrini believe he had improved it. Such is the double power of winning through actions rather than arguments. No one is offended, and your point is proven. Keys to power. In the realm of power, you must learn to judge your moves by their long-term effects on other people. The problem in trying to prove a point or gain a victory through argument is that in the end you can never be certain how it affects the people you are arguing with. They may appear to agree with you politely, but inside they may resent you, or perhaps something you said inadvertently even offended them. Words have that insidious ability to be interpreted according to the other person's mood and insecurities. Even the best argument has no solid foundation, for we have all come to distrust the slippery nature of words. And days after agreeing with someone and someone, we often revert to our old opinion out of sheer habit. Understand these words are a dime a dozen. Everyone knows that in the heat of an argument, we will all say anything to support our case. We will quote the Bible, refer to unverifiable statistics, who can be persuaded by bags of air like that. Action and demonstrated are much more powerful and meaningful. They they are there before our eyes for us to see. Yes, now the statue's nose does look just right. There are no offensive words, no possibility to minister many misinterpretation. No one can argue with a demonstrated proof. As Blaster Gracian remarks, the truth is generally seen, rarely heard. Sir Christopher Wren was England's version of the Renaissance man. He had mastered the science of mathematics, astronomy, physics, and psychology. Yet during his extremely long career as England's most celebrated architect, he was often told by him patterns to make impractical change in his designs. Never once did he argue or often. He had other ways to proving this point. In 1688, Wren designed a magnificent town hall for the city of Westminster. The mayor, however, was not satisfied. In fact, he was nervous. He told Wren he was afraid the second floor was not secure and that it could all come crashing down on his office on the first floor. He demanded that Wren add 2 stone columns for extra support. Wren, the consummate engineer, knew that these columns would serve no purpose and that the mayor's fears were baseless. But build them he did, and the mayor was grateful. It was only years later that workmen on a high scaffold saw that the columns stopped just short of the ceiling. They were dummies, but both men got what they wanted. The mayor could relax, and Wren knew positivity would understand that his original design worked and the columns were unnecessary. The power of demonstrating your ideas is that your opponents do not get defensive and are therefore more open to person, making them literally and physically feel your meaning in infinitely more powerful than argument. A heckler once interrupted Nikita Khrushchev in the middle of a speech in which he was denouncing the crimes of Stalin. You were a colleague of Stalin's, he heckler yet. Why didn't you stop him then? Khrushchev apparently could not see the heckler and braked out. Who said that? No hand went up. No one moved a muscle. After a few seconds of tense silence, Khrushchev finally said in a quiet voice, "Now you know why I didn't stop him." Instead of just arguing that anyone facing Stalin was afraid, knowing that the slightest sign of rebellion would mean certain death, He had made them feel what it was like to face Stalin, had made them feel the paranoia, the fear of speaking up, the terror or the terror of confronting the leader. In this case, Khrushchev, the demonstration was visceral and no more arguments was necessary. The most powerful person goes beyond action into symbol. The power of a symbol, a flag, a mythic story, a, a monument to some emotional event is that everyone understands you without anything being said. In 1975, when Henry Kissinger was engaged in some frustrating negotiation with the Israel over the return of part of the Sinai desert that they had seized in the 1967 war, he suddenly broke off a tense meeting and decided to do some sightseeing. He paid a visit to the ruins of the ancient fortress of Masada, known to all Israelis as the place where 700 Jewish warriors committed mass suicide in AD 73 rather than give in to the Roman troops besieging them. The Israel instantly understood the message of Kissinger's visit. He was indirectly accusing them of courting mass suicide, although the visit did not by itself change their minds. It made them think far more seriously than any direct warning would save. Symbols like these on one carry great emotional significance. When aiming for power or trying to conserve it, always look for the indirect route and also choose your battles carefully. If it does not matter in the long run whether the other person agrees with you, or if time and their own experience will make them understand what you mean, then it is best not even to bother with a demonstration. Save your energy and walk away. Image the seesaw, up and down go the arguers, getting nowhere fast. Get off the seesaw and show them your meaning without kicking or pushing. Leave them at the top and let gravity bring them gently to the ground. Authority. Never argue in society, nothing must be discussed, give only results. Reversal. Verbal arguments has one virtual use in the realm of power to distract and cover your tracks when you are practicing deception or are caught in a lie. In such case, it is to your advantage to argue with all the conviction you can muster. Draw the other person into an argument to distract them from your deceptive move. When caught in a lie, the more emotional and certain you appear, the less likely it seems that you are lying. This technique has saved the hide of many a con artist. Once Count Victor Lustig, swindler per excellence, had sold dozens of suckers around the country a phony box which is claimed to be able to copy money. Discovering their mistakes, the suckers generally choose not to go the police rather than risk the embarrassment of publicity. But one sheriff, Richards of Ramsey County, Oklahoma, was not the kind of man to accept being conned out of $10,000, and one morning he tracked Lustig down to a hotel in Chicago. Lustig heard a knock on the door. When he opened it, he was looking down the barrel of a gun. What seemed to be the problem? He calmly asked. "You son of a bitch," yelled the sheriff. "I am going to kill you. You conned me. You conned me with that demon box of yours." Lustig feigned confusion. "You mean it's not working?" he asked. "You know it's not working," replied the sheriff. "But that's impossible," said Lustig. "There's no way it couldn't be working. Did you operate it properly?" "I did exactly what you told me to do," said the sheriff. "No, you must have done something wrong," said Lustig. The argument went in circles. The barrel of the gun was gently lowered. Lustig next went to phase two in the argument tactic. He poured out a whole bunch of technical globally look about the box operation, completely building the sheriff, who now appeared less sure of himself and argued less forcefully. "Look," said Lustig, "I'll give you your money back right now. I'll also give you written instructions on how to work the machine, and I'll come out to Oklahoma to make sure it's worked properly." "There's no way you can lose on that," the sheriff reluctantly agreed. To satisfy him totally, Lustig took out $100 bills and gave them to him, telling him to relax and have a fun weekend in Chicago. Clamor and a little confused, the sheriff finally left. Over the next few days, Lustig checked the paper every morning. He finally found what he was looking for. A short article reporting Sheriff Richards' arrest, trial, and conviction for passing counterfeit notes. Lustig had won the argument. The sheriff never bothered him again. So guys, this is the law number is 9. Win through your actions, never through arguments. Next law is 10. Infection, avoid the unhappy and unlucky. First of all is a judgment. You can die from someone else's mystery. Emotional states are as infectious as disease. You may feel you are happy helping the drowning man, but you are only precipitating your own disaster. The unfortunate sometimes draw misfortune on themselves. They will also draw it on you. Associate with the happy and fortunate instead. Transgression of the law. Born in Limerick, Ireland in 1818, Marie Gilbert came to Paris in the 1840s century to make her fortune as a dancer and performer, taking the name Loza Montes. She claimed to be a flamenco dancer from Spain. By 1845, her career was languishing, and to survive, she became a courtesan, quickly one of the more successful in Paris. Only one man could salvage Losa's dancing career, Alexander Dujouriez, owner of the newspaper with the largest circulation in France, and also the newspaper's drama critic. She decided to go and conquer him. Investigating his habits, she discovered that he went riding every morning, an excellent horsewoman herself. She rode, she rode out one morning and accidentally ran into him. Soon they were riding together every day. A few weeks later, Lola moved into his apartment. For a while, the two were happy together. With Dujarrier's help, Lola began to revive her dancing career despite the risk to his social standing. Dujarrier told friends he would marry her in the spring. Although Dujarrier was deeply in love, his life started to slide downhill. His fortunes in business changed, and influential friends began to avoid him. One night, Dujarrier was invited to a party attended by some of the wealthiest young men in Paris. Lola wanted to go to him, but he would not allow it. They had their first quarrel, and Dujarrier attended the party by himself. There, hopelessly drunk, he insulted an influential drama critic, Jean Baptiste Rosemond B. Rosemond de Beuvelien, perhaps because of something the critic had said about Lola. The following morning, Beuvelien challenged him to a duel. Beuvelien was one of the best pistol shooters in France. Dujarrier tried to apologize, but the duel took place, and he was shot and killed. Thus ended the life of one of the most promising young men of Paris society. Devastated, Lola left Paris. In 1846, Lola Montes found herself in Munich, where she decided to woo and conquer King Ludwig of Bavaria. The best way of Ludwig, she discovered, was through his ride-de-camp, Count Otto von Richburg, a man with a fondness for pretty girls. One day, when the Count was breakfasting at an outdoor cafe, Lola rode by on her horse, was accidentally thrown from the saddle, and landed the Richburg's feet. The Count rushed to help her and was enchanted. He promised to introduce her to Ludwig. Richburg arranged an audience with the king for Lola, but when she arrived in the anteroom, she could hear the king saying he was too busy to meet a favor-seeking stranger. Lola pushed aside the sentries and entered his room anyway. In this process, the front of her dress somehow got torn, and to the astonishment of all, most especially the king, her bare breasts were brazenly exposed. Lola was granted her audience with Ludwig. 55 hours later, she made her debut on the Bavarian stage. The reviews were trebled, but that did not stop Ludwig from urging more performances. Ludwig was, in his own words, bewitched by Lola. He started to appear in public with her on his arm, and then he bought and furnished an apartment for her on one of Munich's most fashionable boulevards. Although he had been known as a miser and was not given to flights of fancy, he started to shower Lola with gifts and to write poetry for her. Now he favored mysteries. She catapulted to fame and fortune overnight. Lola began to lose her sense of proportion. One day, when she was out riding, an elderly man rode ahead for her, a bit too slowly for her liking. Unable to pass him, she began to slash him with her riding crop. On another occasion, she took her dog, unleashed out for a stroll. The dog attacked a passerby, but instead of helping the man get the dog away, she whipped him with the leash. Incidents like this infuriated the stolid citizen of Bavaria, but Ludwig stood by Lola and even had her naturalized as a Bavarian citizen. The king's entourage tried to wake him to the danger of the affair, but those who criticized Lola were summarily fired, while Bavarians who had loved their king now outwardly disrespected him. Lola was made a countess, had a new place built for herself, and began to dabble in politics, advising Ludwig on policy. She was the most powerful force in the kingdom. Her influence the king's cabinet continued to grow, and she treated the other ministers with disdain. As a result, riots broke out throughout the realm. A once peaceful land was virtually in the grip of civil war, and students everywhere were chanting "Ruis mit Lola." By February of 1848, Ludwig was finally unable to withstand the pressure. With greatest sadness, he ordered Lola to leave Bavaria immediately. She left, but not until she was paid off. For the next 5 weeks, the Bavarians' wrath was turned against their formerly beloved king. In March of that year, he was forced to abdicate. So guys, the part 2 will be continued tomorrow. Thank you.